What's up, guys? It's Chuck West of CW Brand Solutions, back again with more logo design talk, especially music logo design talk. We love music here. So, what I wanted to do was remind you guys that when looking for inspiration for your brand's music logo, never be afraid to look at what came before. So let's take a look at some top-notch music group, band, MC, whatever you call them. Let's check some good logos out. Now, if you're a record collector, like I once was, you probably recognize this logo, Tommy Boy Records. Now, what do we see here? We see both a logo type, that is typeface, word mark, as well as their icons, because they are literal silhouettes of human beings. And from what we can see, it looks like the three different characters are doing different positions of b-boying or breakdancing, if you're not familiar with the hip-hop vernacular. So, is it simple? Yes. The three b-boys, it's easy to look at. The Tommy Boy and the and the icons are legible. I would ask whether or not it would make more sense just to show one character, one b-boy. Is there a way to show one b-boy to capture the movement that we seem to see from these three characters? It looks like, based on the hairstyle, it looks like the characters are the same person, but just in different stances. Is there a way to just show one character, like maybe this one on the left here with Tommy Boy? I'm going to be going into redesigning popular hip-hop logos just for a fun little challenge. But for now, we're just looking at what's considered top rap logos and what we think of them currently. Now, as far as the typography, we see this bold, thick serif typeface to show that, these guys are in your face and they're trying to get your attention. After all, people who breakdance, people who b-boy are people who are doing very dynamic moves. So it makes sense to have a dynamic typeface to go along with these icons. Now, again, it's legible. There's definitely contrast with the difference between how one character is positioned from another to another. There is hierarchy, the position of the typography in relation to the characters, as well as the uppercase T and Y and the uppercase B and Y in boy. So we're getting a little bit of hierarchy saying that the outside, because we see like the T on the outside, the Y on the outside, and then we got the three characters and the B and the Y. So we're seeing that this outside, we're trying to show the boldness of moving outward. So we definitely got some hierarchy going on there too. Some good hierarchy. Let's land, right? So contrast shows up quickly. We can see it immediately between the O and Y and the X. We have this bloody X here. So we're already given a hint as to what kind of music that Onyx makes. Onyx was hard-hitting, boom-bap, beat-you-up style kind of music. So that makes perfect sense. And this Onyx, the way it's written, matches the shape of the face that we see here. Now, the grittiness of the expression, and by grittiness I mean with the typography we see some smooth, sharp edges going on, whereas here the edges are a lot more rough. So that's more contrast that we see. I don't consider the rough edges versus the smooth edges a problem, simply because overall the outline of this face, or the head, matches the O shape. So we're still seeing some unity between the typography and the symbol, which is what we want. Now, legibility, everything's easy to read. If we back up and look at it from a distance, it's still easy to read. It can be seen. Hierarchy, we see the word Onyx above the head. So there's some vertical movement going on here. And of course, we've got the blood dripping down too. And also we see the word Onyx onyx is put on top instead of being put on the same axis, the same horizontal axis as the face. And that definitely simplifies it, because if we were to put the word onyx next to the face, it would almost look like onyx if we put it in the wrong place, because it looks like this O shape and this O shape next to each other. That could be misinterpreted. So good on onyx there. Tribe Called Quest. This is a very interesting one. So this style of the typography and the characters or symbols for people that you see here is a callback to chalk drawings and cave drawings, because you see these little stick figures and you see the kind of very simple, yet the edges are kind of rough. If we zoom in, you see that from the edges of the characters to the edges of the letters and the typography. So we're going back to a very old school, simple kind of style, which makes perfect sense for Tribe Called Quest, because in the 90s, when you had rappers who were doing that really fast style, starting with the chopping style, like da-da-da-da-da-da, you know, Tribe Called Quest wasn't like that. They were very smooth, jazzy, and they had a nice, simple flow. And that's why a lot of people like Tribe Called Quest so much. I would ask, like the letter A here in A Tribe Called Quest, this is not the first thing we see. I wonder if Tribe Called Quest could just stand on its own without the A. I mean, after all, when people say Tribe Called Quest, they say just that. Most people do not say A Tribe Called Quest. They leave out the A at the beginning. So could this be simplified by taking out the A? I believe it could. Negative space. There's a lot of space between these two characters here, as far as the two characters inside this typography, and the space going on in here. That's very interesting to me. A lot of times we're called into question, we as designers are called into question when we leave so much negative space. Would there need to be anything else added to this logo? After all, we are seeing the progression of the movement of the character from here on the left outside the Tribe Called Quest type to left inside to right inside to right. So we are seeing a horizontal progression. Now, this sort of goes against the circular progression of the words Tribe Called Quest. So that's an interesting contrast there. Okay, now we're talking about the king of simplicity, the Hieroglyphics logo. Now, for those who aren't familiar with Hieroglyphics, rap crew from Oakland, and it's very simple, the three-eyed face logo. 1, 2, 3, and then the plain expression for the mouth. Now, something that may not occur to people immediately, they're from Oakland, and this circle for a face could be like the first letter in the word Oakland, the letter O. But having third eye vision. But one thing that I really like about this logo is it's so simple that it would be easy to apply anywhere. Number one, that's why it's considered part of the top 10 hip-hop logos of all time. Number two, it can be applied to t-shirts, it can be applied to tattoos. There are a lot of Hieroglyphics fans that have this as a tattoo, you know? One big circle, 3 small circles, and 1 rectangle. That's how easy it is. Now, the idea was that Hieroglyphics could see beyond. They weren't trying to be gangster rap. They had their own thing going on. And they still have their own thing going on. But this is pretty much the king of simplicity, the king of simple logos. Easily remembered too. Because if it was just 2 eyes, then it's just another face. But that third eye is what adds that uniqueness. You know, this hadn't been done before as far as a logo is concerned. at least not with the plain expression for the mouth. Now, as far as hierarchy, we've got the 3 circles above the rectangle, all the way back, and you can see it. You know, there are no letters to read. There's just the circles and the rectangle. It's nothing complex. And this is what makes it so applicable to other things. And this is why so many people adopted it. This is why so many people use it as a tattoo, because it's a simple tattoo. Now, the contrast would be between 2 things. Number 1, the size of the larger circle and the smaller circles. And number 2, these smaller circles versus this rectangle. Round shapes versus sharp edged shapes. Rounded versus edged. Let's keep going. This is a very interesting one. Very, very geometric. This logo almost from the outside nearly makes up a perfect rectangle with the exception of the bottom of the P and the curve of the D here. But we see that it's very geometric, and the fact that they have been able to fit these letters into a rectangle shape is what helps make it simple. Now, it's easy to remember, it's bold. When you back up, you can still read it. There is hierarchy between the E and the P because the E stands higher than the P, M stands higher than the D, and it's kept within this rectangular shape by these disconnected dashes here, above the P, below the E, from the bottom of the P to the edge of the D, and above the D. Definitely a contrasting position. Interestingly enough, the movement of from E down to P up to M down to D, you could almost say that that's like the way a sound wave looks. Up, down, up, down. So just looking at how you can see multiple subtleties within one simple logo is part of what makes it memorable. Let's keep going. Okay, I'm pretty sure everyone knows this one. Nothing complex about this, folks. Nothing complex here, folks. The fact that Run and DMC both have 3 letters in them makes it perfect to put within this square shape that you see here, because it makes for an equal length from R to N, from D to C, and you got these red rectangles on the top and bottom to create that perfect square. The Run-DMC logo is very easy to just apply anywhere. T-shirts, tattoos, you could put it on posters, tickets, flyers, computer screens, of course. Anything that makes your entire branding campaign easier is proof that you stumbled upon a good logo. Now, I say stumbled upon, but in reality, I'm sure the person who designed this he didn't just stumble on it. He was thinking about how to make it simple. We've got the contrast between the red on the top and bottom and the white of the words Run-DMC. We definitely see a hierarchy, making it easy to read. Run on the top, DMC on the bottom. Again, we do a distance check. Can we still read it? Yes, we can. Always remember to take a step back when you design a logo to make sure that you can read and that people can read your logos after you design them. Def Jam. All right. Now, when you go on Instagram and look at the pages of different logo designers, you will see a lot of logo designers melding letters together just for simplicity's sake, to combine letters into one form. Now look at how the D and the J, although they're not actually touching, they're close enough to suggest an intentional relationship between each other, okay? So this helps create that hierarchy, the D on top, J on the bottom, and also a sense of unity for Def and Jam. This makes it easier to read. If you imagine Def and Jam were just side by side, it it wouldn't be as memorable because the words wouldn't be melding into one shape. The more able you are to bring things into one, the more memorable it becomes, because it's easier to remember one thing than it is to remember two. Now, I don't care if you are 4 years old or 40 years old. You know the Wu-Tang symbol. Now, what makes this so memorable? I really can't think of any other hip hop or rap or music symbol like it. The boldness of this W and the variation between widths when we get to from the outer curves of the W to this inner curve right here. I don't even know what you would call this. I know there's a typography term for it, but it escapes me right now. But you can see this W is very bold. It has very sharp edges. It's very reminiscent of an artifact, something that you might find buried in the ground. If you're an archaeologist, you dig something up and find this very sharp, bold artifact piece, this ancient piece of symbolism. And, you know, to me, when I saw this little piece in the middle, the shape, when I look back, it almost reminds me of a bird. Like these being the wings on the outside and this being the bird's head in the middle. Again, seeing multiple images within one logo helps make it memorable. And we see some sharp edges here. You know, like it was very intentionally crafted, intentionally carved. We also see, as far as legibility, easy to read, back up. You see the letter W, and of course, it's almost a logo. It's a logo that you can't unsee. Once you see this, you remember it. Even if you don't see the name of the group, you will remember this symbol. It's too bold not to be remembered. Now, okay, Public Enemy. Now, this logo, although we can consider it more complex than the Wu-Tang logo, more complex than the Hieroglyphics logo, more complex than the Def Jam logo, it still leaves a lasting impression. We see this very military style kind of logo. One thing the Public Enemy did do, they made it so that their logo could be easily encapsulated within a simple shape, aka the rectangle, okay? And we've got the simple shape of the circle for the outline of the crosshairs, and we've also got the square for the actual icon of the person in the crosshairs. And then outside that, we have this rectangle surrounds that and the words Public Enemy. We get very geometric once again. That's a pattern that we see with a lot of memorable logos, a lot of perfect geometry. Not every great logo is perfect geometry, as you saw within the Wu-Tang symbol, but there is a pattern in a number of memorable logos about having perfect geometric shapes, right? There is a theory that human beings, although we don't literally see a grid in reality, we look at things as though we're looking at them within a grid. And when you have perfect geometry, that fits within the visual grid. So that is why having perfect geometry, perfect geometric shapes is very helpful when designing a good logo, a memorable logo. And everything is styled as a way to unify it all. Because again, the words Public Enemy, written military style, also very bold. That's the contrast between the white and the black, as well as between the strokes of, say, the left stroke of the U and the right stroke of the U, the left stroke of the N and the M versus the rest of the N and the rest of the M. Also have a light stroke for the N here. So just trying to get your attention, like, hey, look at me. And of course, it's almost like saying look at me with the typography of Public Enemy, and then you get to this character in the crosshairs and it's like, oh, That's why I should look. Got you in the crosshairs. So these are the kinds of things to look for when trying to find inspiration for quality logos. Everything from perfect geometry to contrast between weights of typography to finding ways to combine certain letters into one form, or at least to hint at one form, just making things as simple as you can. Also, just being able to create a symbol that, although may contain shapes and forms that are very familiar, turn out to be forms that are a little less familiar. Remember hieroglyphics with the third eye? So geometric shapes, familiar forms, with a little bit of a twist. Something that really grabs your attention, kind of like the man in the crosshairs for the Public Enemy logo. So these are the things that we look for when we want to design quality music logos. Now we'll be looking at logos for other genres too in future videos. Until then, I'm Chuck West. Thanks for watching. Take care.